What's going on? I'm Corey Plahuta, and I'll be giving my final topic speech on raising awareness for depression amongst professional athletes. So, depression amongst professional athletes is something that really kind of gets thrown under the radar and is something that isn't talked about as much because professional athletes are people who are portrayed to have these perfect lifestyles and, you know, everything's perfect in their lives. They're not supposed to be sad, they're not supposed to have problems, but in all reality, this isn't the case. Famous athletes face problems in their lives just like we do, and to say that they have it perfect would be a false statement. So, if you think about it, famous people have bigger problems and more extreme problems because they live a lavish lifestyle. Everybody knows the saying, "More money, more problems," and I would always assume that to be true. Uh, Famous athletes face a lot of problems a lot of times because they don't speak about how they feel out of fear of being criticized by their teammates and by just people on social media who, think that they shouldn't have problems because of their status and all the money that they have. They should be happy, but this isn't the case. Just to name a few athletes who suffer from depression: Kevin Love is a five-time NBA All-Star, a 2016 NBA champion, and he also won an Olympic gold medal with Team USA. He suffers from depression and anxiety, specifically through panic attacks. One time in particular, he had a panic attack in the middle of a game and had to be removed and taken to the hospital because he feared he was having a heart attack. And he really just was having a panic attack and wasn't sure. Like, he didn't know that's what was going on. He lied to his teammates about what was going on because he didn't want to tell them how he was feeling. And he thought that they would, think he was weak and they wouldn't want to be around him because they had a little sad guy around him. And once he got over that fear and addressed how he was feeling, he said it was the biggest pressure and biggest stress relief off his shoulders. And now he speaks out and really emphasizes the importance of knowing that you're not alone and there are other people out there who feel the way you do. Tyson Fury is the next professional athlete I choose to talk about. He is the world heavyweight boxing champion. In 2016, he was stripped of that title and he began drinking and using cocaine. After his title was stripped, he was injured, and he said during his time off, he was on the verge of suicide. Every day he would wake up and pray for death. He didn't want to be alive because it didn't matter what he do. He knew he couldn't go box, he couldn't fight. He said he was raised, had a childhood that was rough. He was raised to keep his emotions held in until pretty much being on the verge of explosion. And then at that point, everything you let out is rage. There's really no way to address how you feel without coming across aggressive. So he uses boxing now as his stress relief, and how he deals with his everyday struggles is through boxing. Probably the one that hit the hardest to me was the story about Ken Griffey Jr. So when Ken Griffey Jr. was 17 years old, he was in his first season in professional baseball with the Mariners, and he was having some trouble with his father and with the bus driver's sons. So, in particular, the bus driver's sons had a problem with using racial slurs against Ken Griffey Jr. and chasing him around with a gun. I'm not sure how this, how it was allowed to happen in the organization, but times were tough back in the day, so, who really knows. But dealing with this pressure, he would then come home and get into constant arguments with his father because of baseball and because of his performance. And this led him, he had a lot of hate in his heart and a lot of sadness. And then he said one day he came home and he was hurt and he wanted to hurt others. So he decided to take 300 aspirins in an attempted suicide. And his mother and sister rushed him to the hospital where his stomach was pumped and he was put in intensive care. and he speaks on that situation and is really open to talk about how he grew from that, and just really talk about how he reached the bottom of the bottom and now he's on top. And Ken Griffey Jr. is arguably the best baseball player to ever play the game. So everybody deals with their problems and everybody has their issues, but it's just really important to speak about it and do not be afraid to communicate and talk about your problems, because the longer you keep it built up, it's just the more it's going to get at you. At the end of the day, it's really important for us to be there for these athletes, because whether or not you think about it, they fear speaking their mind and telling us how they feel, because every time a professional athlete has something to say, they have criticized by somebody. It doesn't matter if they're trying to do something positive, somebody's got something bad to say. So if we can shine more positive light in the lives of these professional athletes and be the support that they need instead of criticizing them when they're really reaching out for help, I think it would be the best thing for us to do. Next is Cole Constant, and he will be giving his speech over why we need to replace fossil fuels and how it will save the negative impact of the greenhouse effect for our society. Thank you, everybody.